Hello my loves, welcome back to my YouTube channel and welcome to my May 2026 bullet journal setup. I started filming this video last Sunday and I stopped filming it on Wednesday. Oh my goodness, it was Thursday. That is literally 5 days of filming. I didn't film consecutively, nor did I film every single day, but I think I split up the filming for this video over 3 separate occasions, and it's because the weather in Dallas this week has been absolutely insane. It was like hailing on Sunday, raining all week, and then it's like cold, hot, cold again. I don't even know what's going on, but all of those factors combined made the lighting in my filming room, aka my bedroom, not so great. And I don't have any lighting besides natural light because I love natural light. So all that being said, as we get into this video today, if you see a lot of like random lighting situations or like kind of heavy shadows, just know I was doing my absolute best to get this video to you guys on time. But I couldn't be happier to be setting up my May bullet journal with you guys today. And we're starting with a very intense art piece. Now, here's the thing about me, right? I tell you guys things in my bullet journal setups, and then the next month I do something different and change my mind. And that's just, I suppose, how my journaling system works. So for context, those of you who have been subscribed and who maybe saw my April 2026 bullet journal setup probably saw that last month I did a Hobonichi inspired bullet journal theme, which means that I did and made spreads completely inspired by the Hobonichi brand of cousin journals, weekly journals, things like that. And I left all of the like aesthetic and decoration to scrapbooking. I didn't really spend any time doing any artwork, which I get in these moods sometimes when I don't really feel like drawing something, and then I get into other moods when I feel like I want to draw really, really bad. So I don't even know anymore. I do think that this past month's experience of using a Hobonichi inspired journal was a really good practice, and I really enjoyed stepping out of my comfort zone, trying something new, and determining whether or not I wanted to keep with the Hobonichi style, go back to my older style, potentially buy a Hobonichi journal and switch to a Hobonichi. That kind of floated around in my mind for a little bit. The issue is it just completely depends on my level of like creativity and what I'm feeling that month, and because I only make a bullet journal setup every like 4 weeks, like I change a lot, but that's totally fine. However, we are not completely stepping away from what I did last month. I'm going to be taking a lot of aspects of my setup that was inspired by Hobonichi and using that in my bullet journal today. However, we're starting out the video, as you can clearly already tell, with a big art piece that we're going to be doing on the cover of my May setup that you probably already saw from the thumbnail. And this piece I literally worked on over all 3 days of shooting. Like, if that doesn't tell you how much work I put into this, it's because I just had this vision in my mind and I wanted to execute it as best as possible. And I think it's also worth mentioning that I haven't actually used alcohol markers for a bullet journal setup since December of last year. So far this year I've only really used water-based markers that I drew directly into my journal pages, and then of course last month we did more scrapbooking vibes. And so I was like, you know what, it has been a hot minute since I have exercised that alcohol marker muscle and I was kind of missing it. So we pulled them out for today's artwork piece and we did something that took me days to complete, but I think where it is now after filming, I'm pretty happy with the amount of work that I put in. I think it did pay off. So basically, my idea for my May bullet journal theme was I wanted to do something very colorful and very jungle rainforesty inspired. A couple of years ago, I did a graffiti. Actually, it wasn't a couple years ago. I think it was like 2021 or something. So like literally half a decade ago, which is crazy. But I did a graffiti theme for May. For some reason, May always screams bright, loud colors to me. It never is like pretty pastel, floral, you know, quiet spring. May in my head, it's like she is an angsty teenager with posters on her wall and she is very loud and bright about her colors. And that's just like how this month always feels to me. So going back to my old themes, I did a graffiti theme a couple of years ago and I used this color palette of like pinks, orange, teals, greens, and I really loved that theme. Even to this day, it's one of my favorites just because it's so bright and loud and out there. And then also a couple years ago, I believe it was maybe 2022, 23, I don't know, all the years blend together at this point, but in June, I did a theme inspired by Journal Away where it was a tiger walking out of like the rainforest or the jungle. And so I kind of wanted to take those 2 ideas that I'd used in my past, both of which I really, really liked and combine them into a theme for May this year. So I wanted to do some sort of rainforest, tropical jungle landscape picture for the front cover, and then also combine those colors that I loved from my graffiti theme from a couple years ago. So I came across this picture that I'll put here on the screen from Pinterest. I am almost positive it is at least AI modified, which is so annoying and unfortunate, but the idea behind the picture is just a vertical landscape of these trees and these flowers, I'm pretty sure they're orchids, converging in front of this like background of just miles and miles of forest and mountains and fog. And I really loved the vibe of this art piece. Whether it was inspired by a different creator or not, I'm not sure where the original idea came from. However, I wanted to definitely take bits of this and make it my own and form a landscape version that was inspired by this picture. So we have our trees, we have our orchid flowers in both pinks and oranges, we have a bunch of different leaves, some palm leaves, some fern leaves, some more tropical tree leaves, things like that. None of this is probably actually accurate to what, you know, real plants grow in the rainforest. I am fully going off of vibes here, but I had the best time actually sketching out and drawing this piece because it is just so loud and busy, and I wanted to make it feel like every single inch of this picture was alive, and like there's crickets like chirping in the background when you look at it, and you can hear like rustling of like animals like walking under the brush and things like that, and like the flowers are swaying in the wind, or like the petals are flying off the flowers, things like that, you know. I wanted this picture to really feel like active and alive, not like some stale just photograph of a jungle. And I think the more that I just kept adding and adding to this over time, it just became closer and closer to what my vision was intending. Now, where I would love to do an entire art tutorial for like how I did this, more often than not, when I am doing alcohol markers artwork in my journal, I am going based off of vibes and crossing my fingers and toes. Like, it is not easy to shoot artwork that you're doing for the first time ever live on camera. Like, I always do a little thumbnail and make sure that my colors work together, that my markers blend and things like that separately from filming, but I never do a complete art piece and then do it again for the video. I usually just do first try on camera. And so I don't really have much of a plan besides just what a couple years of art class over the years and just previous experience has taught me with alcohol markers. And with that, I just kind of took my inspiration picture and ran with it. So my plan going into this was I wanted to tackle all of the flowers first, so I could have an even distribution of orange and pink across the spread. There wasn't one section that was like too heavily, you know, pink or orange, etc., etc. And then I could go in and do the trunks of the trees, get those light green leaves that are in the foreground out of the way. And then one of my last steps was actually building in that background and kind of coming closer and closer to where the essentially camera would be if this was an actual photo of the rainforest, by just building up those layers and getting deeper and deeper colors over time. Now, this is going to be a little bit tricky to explain because I'm still not quite sure how I'm like thinking it in my head, but bear with me here. So when you usually take like a regular picture, usually you have your subject in the front, in the foreground of the image, facing some sort of light source, right? So there's a lot of light on the front part of that subject, and therefore the background in the back of the photo, which is hypothetically, you know, further away from where this camera is going to be more in shadow, is going to be darker because all of the light is focused on what is in the layer closest to the camera. Well, in a picture like this, and what really intrigued me about this particular art piece is because I was trying to reverse that system, because in this image the light is actually in front of the camera. Like, hypothetically, the sun is like coming from very far in the distance. Potentially the sun is rising or setting, I don't know, but the lightest part of the sky, so where the sun is the brightest, is far away from the camera in the background. And instead, all of the things that are close in the foreground of the picture are in more detail, but they're often not as bright and as colorful. So I was trying to balance this whole like theory of where my lighting is and where the shadows and highlights should be based on this picture having different levels in it, like front to back. So on the very, very front level closest to the, again, hypothetical camera, we have like the pink orchids, even the orange ones coming in from the top right corner. Like, those are bigger because they're supposed to be close to the camera, and of course things that are further away get smaller as they go further away. So everything that's like on the very front layer is very brightly colored, is very highlighted, as if there was like a flash from the camera or something like that. But then as you go further back into the jungle, we get into this messy area where it is just blocks blobs of color, like blobs of dark green and dark blue and a little bit of dark black, and everything just kind of muddles together in that middle section because I wanted to emphasize like yards, if not like meters and meters of depth in this image as you're going further and further into the jungle without having to draw each individual leaf to represent that, if that makes sense. And then as you get to the very, very background of the image, that's where the trees start to open up, almost as if there's like a meadow back there, and that's why you can see the light coming down from the center. So it took a lot of like trial and error and going over the same sections multiple times with a mix of alcohol markers, a little bit of acrylic marker from some highlighting, and then some color pencil to even add more depth. And overall, I don't know if it's the most like realistic image ever and where all the shadows and, you know, highlights are, but I do think that it has a 3D element to it, and that was honestly my ultimate goal with this entire project. So I couldn't begin to count the number of hours that this actually took me, but after literally 2 days of filming, I finally got this picture done. Alright, so with that being said, I know that we are literally already halfway through this video, which is insane, but we are finally actually opening my journal now, and we can start working on the rest of the spreads. Now, this piece that I did on a piece of marker paper from Ohuhu, it was perfect because it is almost the exact same size as my journal, but I decided that I wanted to actually cut it in half and put a little bit of margin space in between the two sides. Now, I know that that might be a little blasphemous for some of y'all watching me cut this piece of art that I literally spent hours and days working on in half, but it's because I wanted to do something a little bit different. Like, I could have kept the piece all on one piece of paper and just glued it across the spread and kept the middle spine intact. However, I thought it would just be, you know, interesting, something different to give it a little bit of space in the middle and almost not quite center, but kind of center these two halves on their individual sides of the journal. I used double-sided tape to paste these sides in here, and although I debated for a good like 5 minutes if I wanted to make this decision, ultimately I'm glad that I did because it just gives it a little bit of a modern vibe with this white in the middle. Don't ask me why, it just feels that way to me, okay? Also, because the lighting was so harsh from the window to the left of my filming station, it makes it look like these pieces of paper aren't actually stuck to the journal itself. The paper itself is rather thick because it is marker paper, but I promise you the paper was completely flush to the journal. It just makes it look like there's a shadow as if the paper is lifting off the journal because of the lighting, but trust me, that thing is glued on there, okay? So yeah, nothing is moving. Okay, so we've already moved into the rest of the spreads for today's video, and as you can see, I'm going to be cutting a Dutch door. I love Dutch doors, I use them all the time, and if you're not aware of what these are, I mean, you can see me doing it basically on camera, but I'm just cutting out sections of these pages to make almost miniature spreads that you can flip back and forth between while still seeing a bit of like artwork covering all the different pages. I don't know if that made any sense. I always have the hardest time trying to explain what Dutch doors are verbally, but you can literally see me doing it on camera, so just look at that. But what I decided to do was I made another little strip of jungle artwork that is completely copied from the first page. I didn't like use a copier, I did like spend more time actually redrawing, recoloring, and just recreating the artwork from the first page, but it is nothing different, so I decided not to film it because you literally just watched me do that front page artwork for I think 10 minutes, so I think you get the picture by now. But I want to do a very, very similar piece here and have it at the top, almost bordering this spread in from the top down, and then after trimming it up from, you know, the sides of the journal and everything like that, we basically have this piece of artwork that you can see as you flip through multiple spreads for the entire month. So I cut, I think, either 4 to 5 pages that you can flip through here without having to make new art for every page, and that's honestly why I love love Dutch doors so much is because it makes it so much more convenient for me to still have very aesthetically pleasing, artistic, and creative spreads, but not have to necessarily spend time making a new drawing or art piece for every single new spread in the bullet journal. Okay, so we are finally getting to the actual planning part of the video. Again, I know that we're already so far in, but that's just how the cookie crumbled. That's just how my timing went. But here's the thing. So I said at the beginning of this video that I still wanted to hold fast to some of the tactics that I used in my April bullet journal setup, and that is going to be evident here. So I liked a lot of things about the Hobonichi method, and I wanted to carry those into my setup for May, but kind of find even more of a middle ground between my bullet journaling and the Hobonichi. So obviously I'm using a lot more color this month. I'm going to only continue to add more color onto this spread, and the artwork is obviously very different than last month because I spent a lot of time, being creative, but the spread layouts themselves are basically the exact same thing as last month. So one thing that I really loved about my April calendar is that it took up the entire page. It was absolutely ginormous, and it left me a lot of room in my day-to-day boxes for individual planning. Now, May is about to be one of my busiest months of the entire year. I'm moving apartments, I'm going to Florida, I'm finishing my junior year of university. There's just a lot going on. I'm driving back and forth to Houston like 3 times in the span of like 3 weeks. It's gonna be absolutely crazy. I definitely need a lot of room for planning, and I wanted to keep these boxes as big as possible and keep this design all the way to the edge of the spread. Literally, there is barely any margin room. I used to love to add a lot of margin room, and I sometimes still do, but in the past couple of months, I've kind of been leaning into the idea that the planning needs to take up every single square inch of this journal page. Even though I did technically cut the journal page in half vertically and I made it smaller with a Dutch door, but even with the white space that I have left, I am determined to use basically all of it for this calendar. So I did just a mix of colored in boxes versus outlined boxes for this calendar to give it a bunch of color but not be too oversaturated. I'm using water-based markers for this, by the way, because if you didn't know, water-based markers usually don't bleed through paper. It depends on how thick your paper is, but alcohol markers will bleed. So I just found water-based markers that were in the same colorways as my alcohol marker ones, so they all had a consistent color theme, even though I used a variety of different mediums on this one spread alone. And then the 2 boxes on the very left side are just my goals for the month and a check-in at the end of the month to see if I accomplished those goals. So very similar setup to what I did in April, which has been effective for me so far. Now I'm going to talk about the weekly spreads as we slowly move into those. So this is also very inspired by that Hobonichi theme. I really honestly wanted to do my time blocking weekly spreads that I did in April, which is I had these tall columns that were divided into every hour, and I could put to-do lists where I needed to, but I could also schedule things in based on the time blocking. I really liked doing that in April, but because I had cut my Dutch doors, obviously, I didn't have room to fit an entire day's worth of hours on these pages, so I had to forfeit that in favor of the art at the top of the spread here. But I did do these like boxes on the left side, one for every day, of course, and I'm going to continue doing this throughout the entire month. However, the right side of the spread is going to stay completely blank because I'm going to leave this side for my brain dumping, my academic planning, my trip packing, things like that. So this is where my Hobonichi style is coming back into play again, in that my hardcore planning will be done on the left side of the spread, but I'm keeping my right side open to just do whatever I need it to in that particular week. I could be writing about my books that I'm reading, music I'm listening to, projects I need to work towards. Literally, that brain dump is for anything, and that's kind of inspired by the Hobonichi setup. So we will see how well this works for this month, and I'm excited about trying something that's a little bit more artistic and colorful, but still inspired by that Hobonichi spread. Now, I only did one weekly spread because I'd been filming for days, like I told you, and also every other weekly spread is gonna look the exact same way with a couple of boxes on the left and blank space on the right. But with all that being said, I am very happy with this setup. I think the calendar page is my personal favorite, but I think the time that I spent working on this definitely paid off. So let me know in the comments below if you like it, what spread is your favorite, and if you are bullet journaling as well, what is your May Bujo theme? I would love to know in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to subscribe. I love you so much, and I will see you soon for a new journaling video.